Hello again from the First Alert Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Jared Silverman. We thank you for joining us on this week's installment of All Things Science, Climate, and Environment. Today we're talking about something that affects Louisiana so much more than other areas in the country, and that, of course, is lightning. Believe it or not, even though the year is 2021, there's still a lot about lightning that we don't know. There's plenty that we do understand, but still many theories out there about how lightning actually forms. Let's talk a little bit about it. Lightning in lightning. You know, as you learned in school about how opposites attract, negative charge to a positive charge, an electron and a proton. Well, that's basically what we have in this instance here, where the ground has the positive charge and then the base of the cloud has that negative charge. So this is called a stepped leader. Now that happens too fast. The human eye can't see it. Now as the leader draws near the ground, it draws the positive charges up because, like we know, opposites attract. So the positive and the negative meet somewhere midair, in between the base of the cloud and the ground. Of course, where that exactly is will vary from time to time and place to place. But as the leader and the ground cover all merge in midair, that's where you get that powerful electrical current that flows right on through. And what we see, the human eye, is what we call the return stroke, which, by the way, travels at 60,000 miles not per hour, that would be fast, but this is 60,000 miles per second. So this is a blink of the eye. And this entire process happens multiple times over and over again, and not only in small amounts of time, but this whole process takes 1 second or even less than 1 second from start to finish. That's why a lot of times there really can be flashes of lightning that really go unnoticed by the human eye. Now, there are all different kinds of lightning, some that are very common, some that are actually quite rare. The most rare, believe it or not, this is possible, is when you get ground up to cloud lightning, where it actually starts from the ground and shoots up. We have actually seen that happen several times before. It is very rare, and rarely does it get observed by any human being. Cloud to cloud is uncommon. That means one cloud will strike lightning into another nearby cloud. We usually don't see that either. Then cloud to sky, where the cloud shoots the lightning out to the open sky. That happens sometimes, but even that isn't that common as well. Intracloud, that is the most common. That's from within the same cloud. So when you look up at the sky and you see the clouds kind of flashing and the lightning's going back and forth within that same cloud, that's what we call intracloud, and it's very, very common. That's what we see the most. Then, of course, cloud to ground is the second most common, and then cloud to ground positive is something that's a little bit less common, because that's kind of when you have a flip-flop of the negative and the positive charge. Now, there are a lot of different clouds out there, but there are only a few of them that actually can contain and cause lightning. The main one we focus on is what we call a vertically oriented, or a vertical cloud, which you can tell here in our cloud classification. Everything else looks very horizontal. Cirrus clouds tend to be horizontal, stratus clouds tend to be horizontal, but the cumulonimbus, those are the puffy ones that don't just spread out horizontally, but they actually blow up vertically. And they're able to do that because the atmosphere is so buoyant. That means it's so unstable that a little piece of air will continue to rise and rise and rise. And of course, as it cools and condenses, that's where you get the clouds, and that's where you eventually get the precipitation. Before going any further, I've got some really interesting lightning trivia. I want to test you on this and see if you know the answer to this one. According to a study between 2006 and 2016, so that's 10 years of data, almost 80%, that's the majority, almost 80% of all lightning victims had one thing in common. Let's see if you could figure out what it was. Were they A, all 6 feet tall? Well, we know the bigger you are, the more of a target that you are. Were they B, all from the state of Florida? Well, we know that Florida actually leads the country in lightning. In fact, Florida is considered by many to be the lightning capital, not only of this country, but the lightning capital of the entire world. So maybe. Choice C, they were all carrying umbrellas at that time. And then choice D, they were all men. Well, believe it or not, the answer is D. They were all men. Why is that? Well, because a lot of the victims have jobs that are outdoors, such as farmers, or they were golfers outside, or they were attending outdoor sporting events, which of course tends to mathematically favor men. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. These are lightning fatalities between 2006 and 2018, and a couple of things here that are a little bit surprising. Fishing leads the list of fatalities at 38. So a lot of times you kind of get stranded out there, you're in a boat, you can't take shelter that quickly. That's why if you're going to go boating, and many of you do, and many of you go fishing in Louisiana, I feel like this number 38 on fishing, that's a big concern here because of so many people that go fishing, either if they're out in the Gulf or even in a river, and you can't seek shelter fast, or at least fast enough. That's why you really got to keep track with the weather forecast if you're doing any kind of boating or even at the beach. 23 fatalities there. Again, the thing is, you're out in the open, you're not near a shelter, at least not in a quick distance from it. Camping, you could be stuck out in the open. Farmers can be stuck out in the open as well. The thing that surprises me is if you look over here, the least number on the list is golf at 10. You're holding up these little lightning rods. I would have thought golf was a little bit higher than that. But here's the gender. Again, it's 80-20. So as I mentioned before in that trivia question, 80% of the victims of lightning tend to be men. And again, that's just data. We're not being chauvinistic, but tends to be that men have more outdoor jobs than women do, which is why you see this number skewed a lot more towards men. Let's talk about lightning strikes per square mile. You heard me already say it. Florida is actually the lightning capital of the country, even the world, but there's Louisiana at number 2 at 17.9 strikes per square mile. And again, nearby areas. Mississippi's number 3 on the list, Arkansas's number 4 on the list, and Oklahoma's number 5. That's why it's so important here in Louisiana, as the weather could be a fluid situation, that you want to keep track with the forecast, because there are so many outdoors people here, which increases the risk, increases the danger as well. One of my favorite lightning pictures, this is in Baton Rouge, taken a few years ago by a viewer, Frank McManus, and a very impressive one at that. Here are a couple of facts about lightning that you may have not known, and that's why I wanted to point these out. The lightning bolt travels at 270,000 miles per hour. Now that sounds fast, but here's the thing. You would have thought that it travels at the speed of light. But remember, what we're specifically talking about here is the bolt itself, which is still incredibly fast when you consider 270,000 miles per hour, still well below what we know to be the speed of light. Now, here's something that's interesting. We know that lightning destroys trees. We know that. We've seen it happen a lot. But did you know that it actually is good for grass? Yeah, it is. It not only can help the grass grow, but I remember back in Texas where I used to forecast the weather, the grass would be really brown, but after a really good lightning storm, the very next day you would actually see a little more green there. So the lightning does actually help in that department. Not good for trees, good for grass. About 1.4 billion strikes per year. That's across the entire globe, and it's probably even a higher number than that these days. Here's something you may have not known. Helicopters can actually cause lightning. That's a real thing because of the way helicopters are built, the way they move, the frictional effects. So in a lightning storm, of course, a little bit safer to be in an airplane, but a helicopter is certainly something you would not want to be in. Now, lightning, the width of a thumbnail. Very impressive. The width of a thumbnail, but not only is it that small, it's hotter than the surface of the sun. In fact, it is about 5 to 6 times hotter than the surface of the sun because the temperature of a lightning strike could be right around 30,000 degrees versus around 5 to 6,000 degrees on the surface of the sun. First thing you should be thinking right at this moment, if that is true, and it is, then how is it possible that when people get struck by lightning, they actually survive? And the answer to that question is sometimes it would just have to take a miracle, because when you get struck by lightning, 30,000 degrees, and it is a direct hit, I would say more often than not there's a good chance that you will either die from it or be critically injured. Of course, because Louisiana is number 2 on the lightning list, it is always good to stay up to date on a forecast with us here, WAFB, both on air and online, or of course our WAFB app does a great job. As long as you've got the volume up on your phone, it'll actually scream out and tell you. You'll hear the voice of our own chief meteorologist, Jay Grimes. You'll hear them say lightning is in your vicinity. And what we tend to tell people is when thunder roars, go indoors. And the best way to do it is to stay indoors until you hear the last rumble of thunder. Kind of the 30-30 rule, where you want to wait 30 minutes till after you hear that last rumble of thunder. And remember, the other thing with lightning is it's a cause and effect. Lightning happens first, then comes the thunder. So next time, if you want to time out how far away the lightning is, a really good way to do that is to actually count. As soon as you see the flash of lightning, you count 1001, 1002, 1003, you count to 5 seconds. For every 5 seconds that passes by between the flash and the crack of thunder, that's about 1 square mile. So if you ever see a flash of lightning and you immediately hear the thunder, that usually is an indicator that that lightning is very, very close to you. Another indicator, if you ever feel the hairs on your arms or legs begin to stand up, that is also a big indicator that lightning is going to strike very close by and very soon. So if you ever feel that feeling, you definitely want to seek shelter. By the way, you are safe in a car with a hard top roof, as long as it's not a convertible. If it's a hard top, you are safe. The 4 rubber tires grounds you to the ground, and as long as you're in that car, it is a safe place to be. Once again, I'm meteorologist Jared Silverman for WAFB Digital. I thank you for joining us. Till next time, take care.
Thank you for checking out the WAFB YouTube channel. Subscribe now for more videos and live event coverage. And don't forget to download the WAFB News app on your phone for the local news and information you can depend on.